Thank you, Chair. Now, I have a number of questions in the road safety area. So just to set the scene, in response to your to our question on notice, you've replied that in June 2017 there were 5.5 full-time equivalents in the road safety staff employed in the road safety policy and transport standards section. So that's the full extent of your compliment that deals with the national issues of road safety?
Yes, Senator.
5.5. Now, we also know that from some earlier inquiries that funding for these people comes from or at least partly, from the fee that's imposed on identification plate fees for imported motor vehicles, $6 for vehicles and $3 for motorcycles. Is that correct?
The ADR specific activities, Australian design rules and other aspects of road safety that fit under our Motor Vehicle Standards Act, yes, they are supported through the costs that we recover for the program.
Okay, so $6 for vehicles, $3 for motorcycles. So I gather from your answer that I can't simply say that underpins 5.5 people. There are more people involved than that in the ADR standards?
The national regulator for all motor vehicles is located within the department, and it's that activity that those fees collect funds for that activity to be able to be funded. Sorry, Senator. So it's actually a branch within the department.
Okay,
whereas
so there's 5.5 people or full-time equivalents for road safety policy. Then there is the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator or Design ADR part of it. How many people are in there?
Senator, I'd have to take the exact number.
So how long does it take
about half a dozen people, Senator, but I don't know the exact number.
So are there half a dozen people underpinned by that fee?
Yes.
So
Senator,
they're not in the Transport Division, they're in the ADR Division?
They're in the Motor Vehicle Standards Act branch, Vehicle Safety Standards, Senator. Okay.
So have you had any discussions of increasing that fee?
So, Senator, the Motor Vehicle Standards Act is currently under review, and we are looking at actually considering the costs of the new arrangements and working on that shortly. I will note, though, that the costs for that activity were set quite some time ago, and therefore we need to update what it is that we recover.
So are there any discussions at present in increasing that fee and increasing the investment into either the Australian design area or road safety?
Senator, we only are undertaking a cost recovery implementation statement. Sorry, we need to assess what the tasks are that are a requirement for that regulator, and actually then set fees based on that. So we're not able to increase those costs for other activities. But if you had a specific question on that, I'll pass it to my colleagues.
So at the present, the $6 and the $3 is tied to a dedicated formula for cost recovery?
It's tied to what it is that we can cost recover for, yes, Senator.
Right. And that is now under review?
That is, yes.
Does that mean that it's going to go up?
It could go up,
Or is it going to go down?
That's what the CRIS process is for, Senator, to actually look at what the costs are involved in that and reassess.
So you are aware of organisations that have called for that fee to be increased and money to be put directly into road safety? Are you aware of that?
Senator, I'm aware of calls for there to be increased funding for road safety. I haven't necessarily seen them directly linked. Maybe my colleagues, are they aware of anything?
Did you read the AAA submission?
I don't believe that they've necessarily linked it directly to the MVSA, Senator. If they have, I'm sorry, I haven't seen that comment as yet.
Okay, so we have 5.5 people in policy. We have about 6 people in the ADR area. How long does it take to change an ADR, Australian Design Rule? What's the How long does the process take? Is it?
So Sharon Nyakangama, General Manager, Vehicle Safety Standards. The process from the decision to commence to look at developing an ADR through to...
I'm on a really strict timetable.
Right, will take about 2 years.
2 years?
About 2 years. But
From conception to...
Yes. So through a regulatory impact assessment process and to ensure that there is a positive cost-benefit analysis.
Okay, so let's take one of your projects, which was ABS braking on motorcycles. How long did that take? Is it in place yet?
That's in the final stages. We've commenced over 18 months ago and went through some discussion papers and industry consultation. We've had a consultation RIS released in, I think it was July this year, with a 6-week consultation period, and we're in the final stages of developing the terms of the actual ADR now, which has the performance standards and the tests requirements to be met. It's essentially adopting, for the most part, the UN equivalent standard, the international standard.
Why do we bother when, multiple jurisdictions have done the work? Why do we recreate the wheel again in these spaces? I've been told that it's mandatory in India, so why do we, in Australia, do it all again?
Senator, for any proposal that is going to impact on industry, we are required to undertake a regulatory impact statement.
Impact on industry? ABS braking on motorcycles, how would that impact on industry?
It's increased costs in the actual vehicle.
In bringing a more expensive product to market.
But we might be the only jurisdiction that hasn't already got it. I mean, it's already in place in multiple jurisdictions, ABS braking on motorcycles.
Senator,
I don't understand how you can say...
It's a process that we are required to go through.
So your process is you have to cost the impact on industry in other countries?
No, in our country.
Okay, so where's the cost in an industry in Australia when every motorcycle is imported? We don't manufacture any.
There are costs to those who are supplying into the market in Australia. There are also costs that flow on to the consumer. Therefore, Senator. And it's those things
and there are costs that flow onto the community because they kill themselves.
Noting that as part of that regulatory impact statement, we also consider the benefits of introducing...
It's going to be a very long night. Okay, so look, let me try and jump around a bit, but I have a number of questions. So let's take one which I think is incontrovertibly in your department's purvey, Takata airbags. So what exactly have you done in relation to the recall remedy that allows like-for-like defective airbags to be installed in consumers' cars? What have you done?
Do you want to start? Or you want me to?
Now, I'll just preface all this. Do not take any of this personally, that I've become very passionate about road safety. But do not take anything from that other than that I do feel very strongly about some of this stuff, and I accept that the department, in my view, does not have enough people or enough budget to do what I think should be a credible job in this area. So it's nothing personal, but I will be very, very forceful on a lot of this stuff.
Okay. All right. So specifically in relation to Takata airbags, so airbags are included in vehicles to allow the vehicle to meet the occupant protection crash standard. So airbags themselves are not mandated. They are part of a system that provides a level of protection to a crash test dummy when the vehicle is crashed. So if the level of protection can be provided by other means, there is no need to have airbags in passenger cars, but airbags deliver that level of protection and allow the vehicle to be lighter and achieve other things. Right?
We all know what airbags do.
So that's how why one of the main reasons that they're there, to meet the occupant protection standard required.
When exactly did the department learn that the recall remedy allowed like-for-like defective airbags to be installed in consumers' cars?
Senator Alex Vance, Executive Director, Surface Transport Policy Division. The knowledge of what airbag is, or what inflator is being replaced, is something that the manufacturers are putting together. So where you have an inflator that degrades over time, we're talking about ammonium nitrate as the propellant, where you have one that degrades over time, the shortest period of time that the degradation can occur, according to the best analysis in the United States, is about 5 years. Prior to that point, that inflator is safe. If you do not have an inflator that can replace the ammonium nitrate propellant effectively and for the long haul, your only options are to, one, have an unsafe vehicle with a degraded inflator, or replace it with a new inflator that gives you at least 5 years. Worst case. And so the argument has been that where that has been necessary, a like-for-like may be put in. And having said that, we don't have all the details for all inflators, but that's the logic behind it, so that you actually have a safe vehicle while the manufacturers, not including or including Takata, develop an inflator that fits and is not ammonium nitrate in nature and will last the long haul. That's the logic behind it, where it has to happen.
But you're aware that there are 2.49 million cars affected by the Takata recall as of September 2017. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the largest vehicle recall in Australian history,
It is.
clearly. And it first started with 4,200 Honda cars in 2009 and subsequently widened to cover cars sold by different manufacturers in 2013. Since then, 950,000 cars have had replacement airbags installed, but the challenge is that they're not protecting the occupants. The like-for-like is still defective.
The like-for-like
When were you aware of
airbags will protect the occupants for a minimum of 5 years after they're installed.
And then they sell the car to someone unsuspecting down the road, and third hand they goes off and, I think it's important to put on the record here that when these products, failed, people actually thought they were dealing with an IED in a car because of the projectile sort of injuries that people had incurred. We're not talking about, a misfire and you get less cushioning. We're talking about projectiles penetrating people's bodies. So are we saying the department is happy to have a like-for-like replacement schedule which protects for 5 years and then doesn't?
Senator, at the risk of having somebody driving a car with an inflator in it that could do that damage, as we've seen in Sydney, yes, I do believe it is a better strategy than not replacing those airbags at all.
Okay.
And to actually deal with that 5-year period until they can be replaced. The other issue you raised, though, about sale of vehicles, etc., and passing on is one of our key issues that we've been dealing with in relation to working with the states and territories to get registration information to be able to ensure that those cars that need to be followed up are followed up.
I'm going to follow that up anyway. But so you were aware that it was a stopgap measure, and that's my terminology. So
Senator, could I just...
it's clear that there would be further recalls into the future.
Yes. And could I just interject there to say that this is a worldwide issue?
Yeah, well, I'm only worried about Australia.
I know you are. However, the people who manufacture the replacement airbags are doing it for the world.
Yeah.
And so they can't all be manufactured and replaced in a year.
So did you seek advice from the ACCC on whether the like-for-like remedy was acceptable under the Australian Consumer Law Guarantee?
So, Senator, the ACCC have been
take it on
involved
notice
in
if
the
you like.
discussions that we've had with the manufacturers, yes.
We can take that on notice for you, Senator.
No.
So when did the department inform the ACCC that the like-for-like remedy was occurring? Maybe if that's a...
I'd have to take that on notice again. The ACCC is part of a joint working group that we have with the affected manufacturers and have been involved in the discussions at the same time as we were.
So, was
So it
there
wasn't a
any-
matter of seeking specific advice or informing them, they were there.
So did the Department publicly release any information to consumers to alert them about a like-for-like remedy?
I think the
That's-
answer, I
yes.
don't think we did.
No.
Okay.
Senator, that,
Would it surprise you to know that I got a text message from a dealer for a car, a fleet car that I had bought, I no longer own, has no connection with me, but I got a text message from that dealer saying, you've got a recall, bring your car back. I mean, how are these dealers contacting people? Because they appear to be taking the first owner or the first fleet buyer, and I'm talking about a car that would have been, well, I've been here 7 years, so it's pre-7 years, and I get a text message saying, the car you had has to come back. Now, I don't think that's, what efforts have been made to ensure
As I
that
said,
people...
Senator, it is a real process involved in it. I'm sure Ms Nakanyama can walk you through that process and
Well,
the
what
work
does
we've
the
done with states
department
and
do in
territories.
this almighty recall? What do you do?
What do we do?
What do you do to ensure that the like-for-like, which may not, that will occur with another owner when that recall comes up, what do you do to make sure that it gets recalled?
Those vehicles with the like-for-like airbag will be recalled again, and we will monitor that recall as well. So our role under an arrangement that we have with the ACCC is to monitor voluntary recalls. The department has no power to make the manufacturers do anything. Where if something is of concern to us, we will work with the ACCC to encourage manufacturers to accelerate or to start a recall or to do more under a recall. However, in order to move to any sort of mandated action, it's the ACCC's responsibility.
So the department has no power to get the manufacturers to fix this problem? You would only, your
no
only
legislative
recourse
power,
is
that's
to talk to the ACCC.
we have no
We-
legislative
legislative power.
authority or power to do that, Senator. But what we do and have done for a number of years while this has been going on, we have the ability to talk to manufacturers, and we also ask them, and there have been voluntary recalls which have been going on in the background, and we can provide you on notice the amount of rectification that has occurred under the voluntary recalls that have been underway over the last couple of years.
So you would have the total progress numbers of cars that have been fixed?
Yes.
Yes, as at 16th of October.
And the number, you've got that here?
Yes, it's there were 2.5 million affected vehicles. 1.29 million of those have now been rectified. That's 51%.
But they've been rectified with like-for-like?
No, only a small proportion have the like-for-like. I don't have those figures with me at the
Very,
moment.
very few, Senator, have like-for-like being put in. It's only
So
where
can you take
an
that on
alternative
notice? Yeah.
isn't available.
Yeah, and that is difficult for us to... I don't have those actual figures, like-for-like, at the moment, because some of them will be in the same recall campaign, and in the middle of the campaign, the manufacturer has switched to a new supplier or a new propellant type.
Okay. Now, we're told that consumers in rural and remote areas are receiving remedies at a much slower rate than those in the cities, obviously because there's less dealers, or there may not be a particular dealer for that model of car that you're driving. And it's put to me by the aftermarket auto repairers that they should be able to do this work. But it's got to go back to the manufacturer because someone won't give them the code to get in the data point and change this. Well, basically the question
That's a matter
is,
for the ACCC.
regional and rural consumers are suffering a much slower rate of remedy. Is that true?
Senator, we don't know, but we'll follow up
we-
on and come back to you on that.
So just anecdotally, we do have a number that people call, and if we have concerns about examples like that where people have to travel a long way or parts are not available in the location, we'll contact the relevant manufacturer and that resolves a number of those issues.
And, you know, it's in the public domain that the likelihood of a Takata airbag failing varies based on humidity and other external conditions.
That's correct.
Are states and territories with higher humidity and temperatures being prioritised for the recall?
Yes.
Yes.
So, for example, I have one of those vehicles that is under recall, and parts for my vehicle will not be ready until the Northern Territory and North Queensland vehicles up there because of parts. And so that's in terms of
Do you have
safety.
information statistically about that?
I think we'll have to take
We'd
that
have
on
to take
notice.
that on notice.
So do you receive
Because it would
data?
vary by manufacturer, Senator.
Do you receive data from the manufacturers on respect to this?
Around the prioritisation.
Well, around the fixing of this problem?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we do.
receive monthly reports from all manufacturers on all vehicle recalls.
Do you have any power to issue penalties if recalls are not carried out effectively within a short time period?
No, we don't, Senator.
So we have no legislative powers
So-
in this area?
Not when it's a voluntary recall, no, and then if it moves, there are no powers other than moving to a compulsory recall, which are the ACCCs, and then it would be offences for not complying with that.
Okay. So if and I'll put a number of questions on notice in respect to that Takata recall, because it's quite a complex area and a huge number of cars. So thank you for those answers. Now, if I go to answer to question 146 on notice, the response from the department was pole side impact occupant protection for new light vehicles. That has been completed. So that was the priority list for motor vehicle standards.
Yes.
Yes.
So how long did that take?
That one took 5 years to develop the global regulation, and then sort of the Australian led that process, and so our ADR was developed concurrently with that.
Okay, 5 years. Anti-lock brake systems for motorcycles, we're saying 18 months to 2 years, are we?
So that will be imminently that we'll be announcing that one.
Electronic stability control for heavy vehicles.
That's scheduled on the National Road Safety Action Plan for completion by the end of this year, and we're on target to do that
And how long has that been underway?
for at least 2 years. May
2
have been
years.
a little bit more.
Okay. So is there a new priority list?
There is a new one under development as part of the 2018-2020 National Road Safety Action Plan.
So who determines what makes the priority list?
The
The COAG Council for Transport and Infrastructure, Senator, the ministers from all states and territories and the Commonwealth. It's chaired by Minister Chester, and they actually agree the action plan against the 10-year National Road Safety Strategy.
Okay. So that's a process which is underway, so there will be a new priority list.
That's
Yes.
to be considered by Council in November.
Is there a limitation to 3 projects? Is that a capacity constraint?
No, Senator.
Okay, so we have the ability to look at what vehicle manufacturers are doing globally. We obviously have the ability to look at what's happening in the United States and the European Union as probably 2 like-for-like markets, although much bigger than ours. So it's an internal mystery to me. Why do we have to do, given that we no longer manufacture motor vehicles as of last week, why do we have to do the ADR design rules rather than just picking up what's applied in a jurisdiction like the United States or the European Union? Why do we have to do an ADR instead of just accepting that autonomous braking technology could resolve or could avoid 40% of rear-end crashes? Why do we have to do an ADR which could take anywhere on your evidence from 2 to 5 years when we could be saving injury and death immediately?
So, Senator, with autonomous emergency braking, there actually isn't an international standard at the moment.
Okay.
So,
Well, would it
but
surprise you
yes,
to
it
know
would
that
be-
Toyota will have all their vehicles in the United States have autonomous braking technology by 2017?
No, Senator, that doesn't, because a lot of manufacturers are putting their own version of autonomous emergency braking in vehicles at the moment.
Okay.
But there is no standard for AEB internationally at this stage. However, since
So we should take it out, is that what you're saying?
Since we last chatted, Japan has instigated a process to start an international standard, and we will continue to work with them on that, and we will also continue to support ANCAP in its arrangements to encourage the take-up of AEB in all new vehicles as well.
Well, why don't we just mandate it? Why don't we just insist that all vehicles coming our way have autonomous braking technology of whatever the manufacturer's variant is?
I suppose, Senator, the intention is that there would actually be a single international standard that then all manufacturers would adopt, and therefore we would get consistency in approach across it. So we wouldn't set a standard in Australia that didn't align with other countries, so that we weren't requiring additional costs. So in the same way, we harmonise our Australian design rules with international rules.
Okay, so let's just go to something that might put this in a little bit broader perspective. So in relation to the European Union, it is mandatory that there is this autonomous braking technology on all European heavy vehicles. Do you agree?
Senator, my comments earlier were about
I just want to take this into some more perspective. Do you agree or don't you agree?
I'll just check with...
So I'm not, I can't, I take that on notice. I know there is a UN regulation. There is an international standard for heavy vehicles.
There is, sorry, Marcus James, General Manager, Road Safety and Productivity. Yes, it is the case that Europe has mandated that, but my understanding is it hasn't actually been deployed yet.
Okay, so it's mandated.
In the EU.
Now, we know that from two instances, I think one in Berlin and one in Lyon, one example had autonomous braking technology and one didn't. And the number of fatalities that when someone used a truck as a weapon, the number of fatalities where there was no autonomous braking technology was appallingly high. And the other was appalling as well. So this is a direct question. Do you as the department talk to the Department of Home Affairs or their department in regards to autonomous braking technology in heavy vehicles in the event that they're considered by these people who do these awful things as a weapon? And, you know, the European Union's obviously in front of us there.
Senator, that would be a question for the
No,
Department
that's
of Home
your department.
Affairs.
Do you talk to them?
I'm not aware of us having provided information on that issue recently. However, I know that they have their own assessments in place to confirm those arrangements internationally as well. So hence
you
I
don't
can't
talk
speak
to
on
them?
their behalf.
You haven't talked to them? You haven't spoken to them?
Not in relation to AEB issues, no.
Do you even recall the incident where the truck driver drove through the Ayers Rock Hotel and how many people were killed there?
Alice Springs.
We don't need any more graphic examples of how these huge vehicles can be used as weapons, and if there is technology around to avoid that, and it's mandated in the European Union, what steps is your department and your division, road safety, road policy, are you proactive in this space or not?
Do you want to talk about heavy vehicles? But then we'll go back to passenger.
Yeah. But heavy vehicles, it is, AEB for heavy vehicles is our priority technology for us to explore the case for introducing a mandatory ADR under the next National Road Safety Action Plan. So it will be the highest priority. Mainly because there is an existing international standard and the damage done by heavy vehicles in low-speed accidents is far greater than that done by light vehicles. The evidence to date in relation to light vehicles indicates that from other jurisdictions is that in relation to light vehicles, the biggest advantage for AEB systems relates to property damage, reductions in property damage, not so much human trauma from accidents.
Okay. So if other jurisdictions, which in a lot of cases, in the European example, they're huge manufacturers of cars like Audis, Volkswagens, you name it, and other jurisdictions in the US, which all common vehicles that we see here, I mean, The automakers who have made a commitment in the US are Audi, BMW, Ford, General Motors, Holden, Hyundai, Jaguar, Land Rover, Kia, Maserati, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, Mitsubishi Motors, Nissan, Porsche, Subaru, Tesla, Toyota, Volkswagen, Volvo. Now, they've all made commitments in the US about autonomous braking technology, and I accept that they may market a different type of autonomous braking technology, but they're on the same planet as regards to avoiding either low speed, rear end or front end or pedestrian or cyclist collisions. Why aren't we on that page?
Well, we do the same thing through the ANCAP process.
No, the ANCAP is a voluntary process.
And in the
Why
same
don't
way
you use
in
the
the
department
US...
get out in front?
So in the US, they have had their companies sign up to a process. They're not all, as you said, following the same standard. They are doing it on a voluntary basis. And that's the
Because
same
they
that
were
we
threatened
find...
with legislation. They were threatened with regulatory change. And accepting that the regulatory change takes a long while, that regulatory change was put on the industry. They then came up with a voluntary date. And then they came up with competitive pressures, which Toyota has hit the lead by saying all our vehicles will have AEB in 2017. But we don't see any evidence of that leadership in this area from your department in Australia. And I struggle to understand why, because no one wants to see 1,300 people killed and enormous amounts of people seriously injured, let alone the $30 billion plus cost to the economy of road safety. Now, I think this is it's a really urgent, important issue which seems to get avoided. You have, 12 people in the whole department looking in this direction for a $30 billion cost to the economy, for 1,300 plus deaths and enormous amounts of seriously injured. 13 people or 12 people is the evidence. So, I mean, I really can't be critical of anybody in there because there's not enough of you to make a difference. I just want to know why.
You should ask the Minister. No, not the Speaker. Makes sense.
Okay, so can we go to some other issues like you're aware that there are all sorts of different things happening around the country. Take for argument the trucking company with 350 trucks and it wants to put Guardian seeing machine technology in the trucks. Are you aware of that technology? Anybody in the department?
You're talking about the cameras that help with fatigue
Well, I think,
management.
unfortunately, a nod doesn't actually get onto the handset.
Yes.
So, has there been any discussion about, perhaps the Commonwealth doing a trial on that on some of the contracts it lets out? Because that's what the private sector's doing. They're saying we want people to come to our mine and back away from our mine safely, and we're putting fatigue monitoring devices in trucks. Is there any leadership from the department in respect to that? Do you recommend that in the Commonwealth procurement guidelines you trial an area which involves transportation and just say in the contract, let's try these machines out? Do you do that?
Senator, I know we have some autonomous or automated vehicles, heavy vehicle pilots going on around the country at the moment that we're involved in with the states and territories.
So you have Guardian seeing machines
I'm not sure about whether that exactly is part of that. I'm happy to come back to you with more information.
Have you looked at specifying that contractors use safer technology like that?
Sorry, Senator?
Have you looked at specifying that contractors use safer technology like Guardian seeing machines?
Senator, no, not specifically. I know that we have also worked with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator to encourage take-up as well, but I'd have to come back to you with detail in relation to that.
What's a Guardian seeing machine?
It's a fatigue device.
So the driver gets a beep or something.
Yeah.
But you're talking about autonomous vehicles where there's
We
no
need them in
driver.
the Senate.
Sorry, Senator, that's a progression. That the cameras are actually not only used in managing fatigue, but they also assist with greater automation in the truck or the passenger vehicle as well, before you actually get to the fully driverless stage.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there an appropriate time that we might be able to interpose a couple of others who have got 2 or 3 minutes each and then want to